Let's be honest, we've all been there, wrestling with dozens of YAML files, staring at a terminal late at night, hoping a deployment doesn't break. Well, today we're taking a look at how the pros do it. We're going to turn that chaos into control using two amazing tools, Helm and Argo CD.
So let's kick things off with a question that, look, every single one of us has asked at some point. You learn Kubernetes, you master kubectl apply, you feel powerful, and then pretty quickly you realize it's just not enough. But why?
Well, it's because you end up just drowning in YAML files, right? When you have a complex application, trying to manually keep track of all those files for your dev, staging, and production environments, it's a recipe for disaster. Things get out of sync, and trying to roll back a change becomes this high-stress, all-hands-on-deck emergency.
Okay, so how do we get out of this mess? Step one is to solve the packaging problem. And for that, the entire community has pretty much landed on one answer: Calm.
Now this right here, this is the analogy you want to hold on to. Think of Helm as one of those flat pack furniture kits. You get all the pieces, a clear set of instructions, and you know that no matter who builds it, you're going to get the exact same piece of furniture, perfectly built, every single time.
Okay, so what is Helm, technically? It's the official CNCF-backed package manager for Kubernetes. Its whole purpose in life is to take that big, chaotic pile of YAML files and bundle them all up into a single, versioned, and totally reusable package.
And that package we've been talking about, that's what we call a Helm chart. It's basically a smart folder that contains everything your application needs to come to life: the Kubernetes templates, the default configuration values, and all the metadata, like the version number.
And this is where the real magic is. See, a Helm chart isn't just some dumb folder. It's got an intelligent structure. It brilliantly separates the what, your specific configuration inside values.yaml, from the how, the actual Kubernetes resource templates. This separation is the key to making your deployments configurable and manageable across different environments.
This is perfect because it nails a super important concept. The chart itself is just the blueprint, right? It's the static plan. But when you actually install that chart onto a cluster, you create a release. That's the living, breathing instance of your application with its own specific configuration and history. Okay, so we've got our application neatly packaged up with Helm. That's a huge win. But that's only half the battle, isn't it? How do we automate the deployment of that package? And more importantly, how do we make sure our cluster is always running the version that's defined in our single source of truth, our Git repo?
And that's where Argo CD comes into the picture. If Helm is our blueprint, then Argo CD is our automated construction robot. It's constantly watching our Git repository for the desired state, and then it works tirelessly, 24/7, to make sure our live Kubernetes cluster is a perfect, exact mirror of what's in our code.
Now, you're going to want to lean in for this one, because this is a pro tip that trips a lot of people up in interviews. Argo CD tracks two different kinds of status: sync and health. Sync just asks, does the cluster match Git? Health asks, is the stuff that's running actually working? You can be perfectly synced, meaning the configuration is correct, but totally degraded because your new code is stuck in a crash loop. They are not the same thing.
Argo also gives you these amazing tools to control the order of your deployments. Think of it this way. Sync hooks are for one-time jobs, like running a database migration before the sync even starts. Sync waves, on the other hand, are for ordering your permanent services. They let you say, deploy my database first, and only after it's up and healthy, go ahead and deploy my API. Okay, so we've got the blueprint from Helm, and we've got the automated builder robot from Argo CD. Now let's see what happens when we put this power duo to work on a really tricky real-world deployment. Now this might be the single most important detail to understand about how these two work together. Argo CD does not run Helm install or Helm upgrade. It uses Helm strictly as a templating engine. It just says, hey Helm, take this chart and these values and just give me the raw YAML. Then Argo CD's own engine takes that YAML and applies it to the cluster. And that has some big implications, right? It totally changes your workflow. It means, hey, forget about Helm's built-in hooks. You have to use Argo CD's sync hooks now. And you can't use Helm rollback anymore. In a GitOps world, how do you roll back? Simple. You revert a commit in Git.
So check this out. Here's how you can pull off something super risky, like a database migration, with zero downtime. First, a pre-sync hook runs a Kubernetes job to migrate the database schema. If that job fails, bam, the whole deployment just stops. Nothing bad happens. But if it succeeds, sync wave 1 brings up the database. Argo waits for it to become healthy. And only then, once it knows the database is ready, does sync wave 2 roll out the new API code. That is control.
Okay, let's zoom out and pull this all together. What does your day-to-day actually look like now? How do we create a workflow that gives your team that perfect mix of incredible speed and rock-solid stability?
This quote right here, this tells you everything you need to know about the real superpower of GitOps, self-healing. It's a classic story. Someone messes up, goes and manually scales a deployment to 0 in production. In the old world, that's a panic. In the GitOps world, Argo CD just sees that the cluster has drifted from the state declared in Git, and it fixes it automatically. No pages, no panic, no problem. And look, to make this real, here are the commands you're actually going to be using every day. This is your toolkit. The Helm commands are your best friend for catching mistakes before you ever commit anything. And the Argo CD commands are your control panel for those moments when you need to manually interact with a deployment.
And that's it. We did it. We've gone from the chaos of manual kube control commands flying everywhere to this beautiful, clean, and fully automated workflow. Every single change, whether it's a tiny config tweak or a massive application upgrade, is now driven by a pull request. Git is your absolute source of truth.
You know, when you really adopt this way of working, it's a game changer. It's not just about the technology, it's about giving your team its time back. You spend way less time fighting fires and way more time actually building cool stuff. So the only real question left is, with all this new stability and time, what are you going to build next? Thanks for watching.